Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to you all. Today in this video we'll be looking at states and function visibility. Okay, so let's jump right in. So first thing first, we'll be looking at state variable visibility. And like we already said, state variable are those variables that are declared at the beginning of the contract, right? So a state variable can have the following visibility. First is it can be set to private, which means that this variable can only be accessed by the current contract using this variable. The other visibility is internal. This means that it can only be accessed by the current contract which is being declared and also inherited contract. And mind you, this is the default visibility for every state variable. Also, we have public, meaning that a state variable can be set to public, which means that it allows the current contract which declares it and also inherited contracts to access this variable declared, basically. But the difference is that once a variable is declared to be public, it automatically creates a getter function so that external contracts can also access it. I hope that makes sense. Let's also move forward to function visibility. So when you declare a function in Solidity, it can have the following visibility. Number one is external. This means that the function can only be called from outside. The second is public, and once a function is declared to be public, it means that it can be called by another function in the same contract that uses this function and also can be called from outside. Also, a function can be declared to be internal, which means that it's only the existing contract, meaning the contract which is being declared, and also an inherited contract that can access this function. And when a function is declared to be private, it means that it can only be accessed or can be called by the current contract in which it is being declared, right? Pretty much it. So usually when you declare a function to be public, it automatically creates a getter function. So this means that it returns the value stored in the variable. Take for instance, a variable is declared to be public, right? It automatically creates a getter function to return the value of that variable, right? Also, when you declare a function to be view, right, it's a getter function because it's trying to read from the states and not necessarily modify the states. So a practical example is this contract that we have here. We declare the state variable to be 42, and we created another contract to be color, and we used the new keyword to create an instance of a new contract stored in the variable C. And in our function f, we basically just want to call the data variable. And now, because when you declare a variable to be public, it creates a getter function. So we're able to call the data function because this automatically returns a getter function that helps us read the value stored in this variable. I hope that makes sense. So let's see a practical example of how this basically works. So as you can see, we have a state variable data stored to 42, and we also have a contract called caller. We initialize a new contract using the new keyword, and we set it to variable C, and in our function f we basically asked it to return c.data, right? We declare this to a view function which basically helps us read the value of the state. Right, so when we deploy this, right, should basically have um, data, right? So let's try to deploy contract caller, right? So once this is deployed, we should be able to call function f, which returns 42, right? So yeah, it returns 42. So this is pretty much the concept of getter function. And also we mentioned that state variables can be private, can be internal, right? Pretty much it. If I try to set this to private and I try to call this, you see, it's saying that remember data not visible, right? But if I set this to public, right, the error goes out. Now, this is so because when you declare a state variable to be private, only the contract can use the variable. Now, when you declare it to public, the contract and any other external contract can make use of this because it automatically creates a getter function for it, right? Pretty much it. And also, a function can be public, can be external, can be can be private, and also can be internal, like we mentioned. Alright, so let's return this back to public. And so that's all for this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.